So look up from your phone, shut down the display. Take in your surroundings, make the most of today. Just one real connection is all it can take to show you the difference that being there can make. Be there in the moment that she gives you the look that you remember forever as when love overtook. The time she first holds your hand or first kiss your lips. The time you first disagree but still love her to bits. The time you don't have to tell hundreds of what you've just done because you want to share this moment with just this one. The time you'll sell your computer so you can buy a ring for the girl of your dreams who is now the real thing. The time you want to start a family, and the moment when you first hold your little girl and get to fall in love again. The time she keeps you up at night and all you want is rest, and the time you wipe away the tears as your baby flees the nest. The time your baby girl returns with a boy for you to hold, and the time he calls you granddad and makes you feel real old. The time you take in all you've made just by giving life attention, and how you're glad you didn't waste it by looking down at some invention. The time you hold your wife's hand, sit down beside her bed, you tell her that you love her, lay a kiss upon her head. She then whispers to you quietly as her heart gives a final beat that she's lucky she got stopped by that lost boy in the street. But none of these times ever happened. You never had any of this. When you're too busy looking down, you don't see the chances you miss. So look up from your phone, shut down those displays. We have a finite existence, a set number of days. Don't waste your life getting caught in the net, as when the end comes, nothing's worse than regret. I am guilty too of being part of this machine, this digital world we are heard but not seen, where we type as we talk and we read as we chat, where we spend hours together without making eye contact. So don't give in to a life where you follow the hype. Give people your love, don't give them your like. Disconnect from the need to be heard and defined. Go out into the world, leave distractions behind. Look up from your phone, shut down that display. Stop watching this video, live life the real way.
So, could you guys imagine if I were to start a conversation like this, and it's a one-way conversation, and this were to mirror the conversations that we have, like in pretty much every other area of our life. Just hold on. Actually, let me reply to this real quick. Okay. Sorry, we're good. But could you imagine, I mean, we do series like this all the time, and we go through topics. In fact, if you're new, this is a part of every single Inside Out, and if you're new, I'm so glad that you're here. Actually, looks like the Lakers and the Clippers are in a tight game. I think LeBron's going to win. Hopefully, Clippers took the first two. Sorry about that. That wasn't important. But could you imagine if, it's kind of how we hang out in groups, or the way that we eat fast food, or the way... I got to take this real quick. 1 second. Hey, babe. Yeah, are you in starting point? Yeah, the message started. Yeah, you can come in whenever you want. That's good. No, I haven't eaten. No. Yeah, let me know if I can pick anything up. Okay, that sounds good. Love you. Bye. I feel awkward. I don't know how you guys feel, but could you imagine if these conversations took place the way that most of our conversations take place, the way that small groups take place, the way that we hang out together, the way that we eat together? We've been planning this one-off today in between two big series for about 4 months or so now, because we wanted to talk about something that has happened that we have to talk about. Because the reality is that the world that you were all born into is not the same as the one that we all currently live in. We were all born in here somewhere in between about 2001, 2002 to about 2006 or so, okay? Something happened maybe the year after you were born, maybe a couple years after you were born, that has changed the landscape of human history, and we are living in the midst of it. In fact, your great-great-great-great-grandkids will learn about the year 2007. It's perhaps the most significant year in about 600 years since the year 1440 when it comes to our culture and when it comes to the way that we interact with one another. Because in the year 1440, there was an invention called the printing press. And this ended about a 1,000-year window called the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages are called the Dark Ages, one, because we just don't know a lot about what happened. Not a lot of history was recorded very well. And because of the lack of progress, the amount of chaos, the amount of warring, all kinds of things that took place. This was one of the things that launched this area of enlightenment, the Renaissance, where there's all of this creativity and interaction, all of this kind of new art, all of this new culture, all of these new things happen. And now all of a sudden, somebody can write down ideas, or somebody can write down the news, and thousands of people can read it. Now books can be mass-produced, and thousands of people can come across a new important idea, and it radically changed the course of the next couple hundred years. In 2007, the world's first smartphone was introduced. And I don't just mean the iPhone, but what came with the iPhone. The fact that now anybody can access the internet, that today about 5 to 6 billion people on the planet, almost everybody, has regular access to the internet, and not just the internet, but what came with the internet. Social media, the way we connect, the way we get information, the way we make decisions, the way we meet people, the way we lead people, the way we talk to people, everything has changed in a way that it hasn't been in millions of years prior. For the first time in human history, things have changed in a significant way like this. In fact, there's one New York Times columnist, he writes about it this way. He says, when I was running around in 2004, Facebook didn't even exist yet. Twitter was still a sound. It was a sound effect. It was a noise. The cloud was in the sky. Maybe you thought the cloud was in the sky. It's not exactly how it works. But he said 4G was a parking space. Applications were what you sent to college. LinkedIn was barely known, and most people thought it was a prison. Big data was a good name for a rap star, and Skype, for most people, was a typographical error. He said all of those technologies blossomed around 2007, and our world has not been the same yet since, and we need to talk about it. For example, when it comes to texting, this was kind of new at the time. Now it's so normal. Let's even make this interactive for a second. How many texts, tell just somebody around you, how many texts you think are sent in a given day? Just one day. How many texts are sent in a day? Tell somebody around you. How many think that is? If you guessed anything less than 23 billion with a B, then you were off, right? There aren't 23 billion people on the planet, and not everybody has a cell phone. So, I mean, some of you guys are doubling up, right? Some of you, a couple maybe since I've started talking, you've sent and contributed to that number, right? But that's an incredible amount of communication that takes place every single day. When you think about social media, over 1 million social media accounts are created every single day. That's about 6 every single second. It took Twitter 4 years to go from tweet number 1 to tweet number 1 billion. Now there's about 4 or 5 billion tweets every single week. YouTube, you and I will not appreciate in our lifetime how significant it is to have access to anybody on the planet and the details of their lives and the best leaders of the world and the best athletes of the world, the way that we can now have a window into people's lives like never before. It used to be there had to be a book, and the book was already outdated by the time it came out because the book took time to write and took time to edit and took time to publish, so it was already outdated before anybody even got their hands on it. Now we have live access. It has radically changed the way we connect with one another. Google takes up 0.1% of the planet's energy every day to power its data centers. It has so much information. It has 30 trillion, and that's a number that our brain literally cannot comprehend, 30 trillion pages of the internet indexed. And it's not just changing the way we get information or the way we learn about things. It's changing how we connect with one another. A few decades ago, nobody met online. Last year, 1 in 3 marriages, like the most important person in your life, started online. And you may not realize it, but the power that you hold in your pocket every single day, or that you carry around with you, or that you fall asleep next to on your nightstand, this computer in your hands is about 800 million times more powerful than the computer that landed a man on the moon. It is extraordinary what we carry around with us every single day of our lives. In fact, I think maybe Uncle Ben said it best, who is Spider-Man's uncle, when he said, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think a couple hundred years from now, there will be some checks and balances on technology. There'll be some things like, oh, this is how we should use it. But anytime some culture gets this brand new power, this brand new idea, we just don't know how to use it yet. Like, we don't know how to use this responsibility yet. We have been given a great power, but we're unsure of our responsibility with it. See, in so many other areas of life, there's some checks and balances, right? Like maybe in January, you think about working out more or reading more or something like that. If you run out of money, there's checks and balances there. Your credit card just stops working eventually when you run out of money. But when it comes to our phones, like you don't ever think about how much time is that going to cost me if I download that app or if I jump on that new social media platform. Like we don't consider that. You probably have never come home from school and you bought another car on the way home. And your parents is like, where did this car come from? You're like, I don't know. My friend said it was a cool car, so I bought the new car. This probably never happened to you, but you sat next to somebody in class and they're like, hey, have you heard of this thing? And you download this thing, and next thing you know, it's taking hours and hours and hours of your life. We're looking at you, TikTok. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things in the world we don't even consider. We just jump into. So with all of this potential and all these cool things and all these ways that there is to communicate and connect with one another, there's also a downside, right? And I think the downside could be communicated with one statistic. I want you to get interactive again, and now I want you to turn the person next to you, and I want you to just answer this question. How many hours a day does the average American spend using personal technology? How many hours do you think that is every single day? Personal technology would be your phone, computer, iPad, Netflix, music, video games. You guys ready? The average American spends 11 hours a day on personal technology. Here's the thing about that number, okay, in terms of if you're trying to do the math, that's an average. Some of you are more than that number. Some of you are less than it, but probably not by much. 11 hours a day when you add up TV and Netflix and our phones and our iPads and our computers and the music we listen to and the video games we play, it's extraordinary. Guys, here's why this is a massive conversation, maybe one of the most important in the world that we could have. If you are lucky enough to live 75 years old, which is a good long life, if you live to be 75 years old, you're going to spend 3.5 of those years eating, okay? Not like 8-hour days, like 24-hour periods, 7 days a week for 3.5 years eating, okay? You're going to spend 25 years sleeping. You're going to spend a third of it unconscious. You're 28.5 years old, just gone to those two things. You will spend, if you are average, 34 years of your life looking at a screen, which means there are 12.5 years left over for all of your hopes, dreams, desires, goals, traveling, relationships, memories. That's it. And in this conversation today, I don't think I'm exaggerating to say I am literally trying to save your life. I'm literally trying to get you life back in this conversation. I'm not saying that technology is bad or evil or any of those things, but I do want to talk about what is our responsibility with this amazing tool, with this power that we have. And is it possible that you could look at a document written 2,000 years ago and it could somehow be helpful or relevant without grossly exaggerating or manipulating or making the text say something that it doesn't say? And I think there actually is. It's one of the reasons that I continue to appreciate the Bible so much as I get older, is that it's still useful. In a radically different culture and context, there's still principles that absolutely apply. And I want to look at a letter written by a guy named John. And whoever put the New Testament together, they struggled a little bit in the creative department because John wrote a book called John. And then he wrote 1 John and 2 John and then 3 John. And then there's this like creative stroke at the end where he wrote Revelation. But we're going to look at 2 John, which if you're new to church and you're like, gosh, I don't know what I think about God or the Bible, this is actually good for you because this is the shortest letter in the entire Bible. It's one chapter, about 12 verses long, and we're just going to look at one verse in it today because there is so much in it. But John communicates something really important. He has things to say that he's already talked about, but I actually want to look at how he concludes his letter. Look at what he says at the end of his letter. He says, I have much more to say to you, but I don't want to do it with paper and ink. I have much more to communicate to you. I have much more to laugh with you about. I have much more to empathize about. I have much more to warn you of. I have much more to inspire you with and instruct you with, to connect with you on. But I don't want to use the technology available to me. Paper and ink was the technology of the day. This was a big deal. You couldn't use paper and ink if you weren't educated, if you weren't wealthy, if you didn't have access to the materials. For the first time, really in history, we're getting some really reliable history because of the fact that it's getting written down in detail because paper and ink is being used. John could write a letter. It could get copied 10 times and sent to 10 cities, and thousands of people could hear his voice. In fact, that's exactly what happened. He used the technology. He's not against the technology. But he said there's some things that I don't want to use the more cost-effective, the more time-effective, the quicker, the easier technology to multiply my voice. There are some things where I want to do something different. I don't want to use paper and ink for this. Instead, I want to do something different. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face. You might have noticed that the stage looks set up a little bit different today. And the idea is that it would look something a little bit like a living room. That there are some conversations that could happen here. Let it represent your living room or a friend's house or maybe a small group room or something like that. That there are some conversations that can take place in this setting that just can't happen anywhere else. That I can look at you and I can see what you really think regardless of what it is that you're saying or you're typing. I can see your emotions. I can see your fears, your anxieties. I can see what you get passionate about, what you get excited about, what you really care about when you're actually making eye contact with me. I can connect with you in a completely different way that, as amazing as technology may be and may get in the future, we just could never connect in the same way as what happens when we are face to face. And he literally gives us a why. He says, so that something can happen. He literally tells us why face-to-face communication is so important. He says, so that our joy may be complete. Meaning, technology is not bad, but if it's all you're using or the main thing you're using to communicate, you're just not going to be as happy. Your joy will not be full. The loop will not be closed. You will not be fulfilled. Your joy will be incomplete. And the amazing thing is that we have a Savior who modeled this. Because we have a God who decided, you know what? I'm not just going to stay up looking down. I want to come and I want to be with them face to face as one of them. And I want to sit in their living rooms. God wanted to sit in a living room with people. He wanted to eat with us and hug us and hold us and laugh with us and cry with us. Apparently, just writing it down wasn't enough. And what's amazing is that regardless of what you believe about God or regardless of what you believe about Christianity, no human being has had more impact on the world and more impact on human history than the person of Jesus Christ. That is just an undebatable fact. Regardless of who you think he is, nobody has impacted human history more than Jesus Christ. And as far as we know, he never wrote anything down. We got to see him one time write something in the sand, and we don't know what he wrote in the sand. Maybe he did, but we don't have access to what it is that he wrote down. He used exclusively face-to-face communication, and no human being has ever had a bigger impact on the world. There is something about which we were designed to connect with each other in this way. The challenge for today, or the point today, is actually very simple, and that is just to create a space for face-to-face. Both a space physically, like somewhere, like an environment, like a coffee shop, and to create a space in your schedule. That, hey, technology is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm speaking with you guys, not at you guys. I mean, I'm as big of a technology nerd as there is. I love all the latest Apple products. I'm crazy about all of it when it comes out. And technology serves a purpose. But we've got to create a space for face-to-face, whether we're hanging out together or whether we're going to a coffee shop together and we're putting the technology away and we're just having a coffee shop kind of conversation. We've got to create a space where we're going to have conversations that just can't happen over technology, where we will just be discontent if they only take place via technology. See, technology is meant to enhance, not replace communication. It is not bad. on its own. It's not bad on its own. That's not the point of the takeaway of today's message. It's just supposed to enhance. When it replaces is when it becomes a challenge. I love Kerry Newhoff. He's a guy in Canada, a leader, a writer, a thinker, and he says this about technology. He says, technology isn't good or evil. It just reveals and amplifies what's already there. The whole technology is bad debate. We don't need to do that. The whole it's going to be like save the future. We don't need to do that either. It just makes what's good a little better. And it makes what's bad even worse. It just reveals and amplifies what's already there. So the way I want to spend the rest of our time is I want to get very, very, very practical, like down to some details of what would be some things that you could actually do walking away from today, okay? You don't have to do all of these. In fact, you don't really have to do any of these, but I just want to suggest them and you can try them in your free time. I'm going to break them into a couple of categories. I want to suggest some minor things that wouldn't take a whole lot of effort or energy. Some moderate ones that might be a little confusing, or might be, gosh, nobody else does this. And then some major ones, which I would imagine probably nobody in the room is going to do the major ones. That's okay. I just want to throw them out there so you can think about them. But then I do want to end on a couple mandatory ones that I think regardless of how you came in here today, regardless of what you believe about God, I think all of us as human beings need to commit to at least some base level ones together. So I want to start with the minor category. And this is funny because you might think the first minor one actually should be in the moderate category, but I put it in the minor category, okay? And the minor one is just to check screen time each week. Get it set up as a push notification to you if you don't have it already. On an iPhone, I know you can do that. I don't have an Android, but I think you can do something similar. And try to beat the previous week. That would be one small challenge. Mine show up on Sunday mornings. I don't know when they show up for y'all, and they tell you, your X percentage up or down from the last week. Just check it each week and try to beat it next week. In fact, if next Sunday, so a week from today, if you guys will screenshot, if you are down percentage-wise on your screen time, screenshot that report and DM us on Instagram, for real. And we're going to give away a Visa gift card to whoever has the biggest drop in percentage points, okay? So for real, do that next week. Just send it to us. Whoever has the most will be a challenge to you guys, all right? That's one idea that you guys could try. Here's another one that maybe you think should be in the moderate category, but here's just one idea, okay? It's to go 24 hours without social media. Now, I know your mind goes to your streaks. That's fine. Do it in the morning, shut it down for 24 hours, and pick them up the next afternoon. You can do that. You can keep your streaks alive with this. And just try to see how often in one day you reach for, you open, you mindlessly try to check, and just see what you experience. Just try it, minor one, 24 hours, okay? Another minor one would be to hang out tech-free. Like literally to go to Torchy's and just say, hey, nobody's going to use their phone while we're eating today. And if your parents are like, you have to take a phone with you so they know where you are, put all of your phones in one bag. That's fine. Let your parents know you're going to do it ahead of time. Just see how it feels. Hey, we're all going to sit down in the living room like this, and we're just not going to pull out our phones for the next hour, and we're just going to see how it feels. Just try it. Those are minor ones, free, okay? Here's some more moderate ones, okay? I think these get a little bit harder, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe would we actually try this or not? More moderate one would be to go 1 week without social media and observe how you feel. Now, here's what's interesting, right? That seems like probably nobody's going to go do this. But isn't that amazing? Because before about 10 years ago, the other, millions and billions of people that have ever lived, that's how they all lived. But for us, we're like, nah, I'm probably not going to do that. I mean, it's a cute idea, but I'm not actually going to do that. I mean, isn't that crazy? It highlights our need for, I think you could say, our addiction to. And observe how you feel if you were to try this. Try to go a couple days. So observe the FOMO that you feel. And you wonder what you're missing out on, what's going on there. Observe how anxious you feel. And when you are anxious and you can't scroll mindlessly, observe how you feel. Do you actually go to bed a little earlier because you're not up, late till early hours of the morning doing something? Or do you get out of bed quicker in the morning because you don't scroll for the first hour of the day when you wake up? Just see how you feel with it. Just try it, okay? Here's another one. Seems nearly impossible, but I still put it in the moderate category. Don't watch more than one episode at a time, okay? A couple years ago, I binge-watched a 7-season show in a 2-month period, and Emily sat me down and was like, something is wrong with you. That's not healthy. You can't do that, okay? And I was like, you're right, I can't do that. Just try, see what it would be like, because generally when we do more than one, we're trying to check out. It was unplanned, and we're feeling a little anxious, and this is really just to numb. This is really just because we don't know what else to do. We don't want to do something productive with our time. We want to procrastinate. Just try it. Just try. Do it for a week. Again, if you're like, nah, I'm never doing that again, that's fine. 1 week lost. You can pick up your normal routine the week after. Here's another moderate one. Unfollow any people or accounts that cause negative self-talk. Okay, if every time you see her post something, you feel bad about your body, why follow her? There's just no need to do that. If the thoughts are jealous, if the thoughts are angry, if the thoughts are bitter, like, I don't know why you just want those thoughts and emotions to regularly come up in you. If it's a competition thing, if it's a jealousy thing, if they cause you to think about things maybe you shouldn't think about or want to go look at other things that maybe you shouldn't look at, just unfollow those accounts, unfollow those people. It's an easy step to save you a lot of energy. Now I want to get in a couple of the major ones. And again, maybe these are too over the top and you're like, man, this is crazy. I think it's interesting that they're crazy and they would actually be hard, but I still want to try them. Here's maybe a more major one. If you were to no longer sleep with your phone in your room, and you were to charge your phone in the bathroom, or you were to charge your phone downstairs or upstairs or wherever your room is, and just watch if I don't fall asleep on my phone every single night or check it first thing in the morning, because those are signs of an addict, right? And I would say we're all addicted. Like, we're all addicted to our phones to say we have to have this or we have to do it. You can try it. If waking up is the problem, I will buy you an alarm clock. Now, I don't know how many people I could actually come through with that on if you were to tell me you were going to do that, but again, I don't think anybody's going to do this. But if you want, let's look into that. If that's the only barrier, get yourself an alarm clock, just try it, see what you think. Here's another more major one. Delete the greatest time sucks, okay? About 5 months ago, I took all social media and all games off of my phone. I'm not off social media. I check them on my iPad now. You can also check on the internet if you want to. I just don't generally carry my iPad around in my pocket or on date nights with Emily, around other people. So now I have to intentionally check those things. Like, I have to sit down, grab my iPad to check that stuff. And I don't mindlessly give hours of my life. And my screen time has jumped down hours. It's almost embarrassing for me to admit that, but it's jumped down hours since I've done that. You could try it. Again, maybe that sounds too extreme or that sounds too crazy, but you could try it. If there's something that you're giving your life to and you're going to end up giving 34 years of your life to this screen and you want those years to go down at all, maybe that's something that you try. Here's another one that you could try for more of an accountability thing. You could have a friend, a trusted friend, or maybe a small group leader set a password. I don't mean a password to your phone, but I mean a password that doesn't allow you to reinstall the social media app or whatever it is unless they do it for you. So you have to tell somebody or install the game. You can block content on a website if you're like, gosh, I always end up just kind of trailing off and get tempted to look at these things, and I just don't want to do that. I don't want that taking up my time anymore. And somebody you trust, you could go to and say, hey, could you set a password that I don't know what it is and I can't install stuff or I can't look at stuff anymore? That'd be really helpful. Again, major. I don't know how many people are actually going to do it, but you could try. You could, instead of a smartphone, you could get a dumb phone. You could get a flip phone. There are like really rich CEOs that have flip phones because they're like, I hate how much time I'm giving away to a screen. I don't want to do this. That's fine. I've actually tried to create mine a dumb phone. Like, I have it in black and white. People laugh at me. I've taken the colors off because there's something about your brain. You check it less often. It's just less exciting. I've taken all the games off. I've taken push notifications off so it doesn't distract me. That's just the thing. I'm a little weird with this stuff. It's okay. But the cool part is you can just experiment with any of that. Like, you don't have to do it. You could just try and see, do I like it? Those are all optional things for you, and you can decide if you want to do any of them. But there are a couple that I think are mandatory that I just think as humans we should commit to, okay? And see if you guys disagree with me. You can disagree with in small group, but here's what I think we should all commit to. I don't think you should write something through a screen that you would be unwilling to say face-to-face. Some of you would say some pretty bold things face-to-face, and that's a different conversation about being kind and nice to each other, but I'm saying for so many of us, it's like driving a car. We take on this persona through a screen, and we say some things that are honestly horrible. I mean, I don't know what comes out on us. I don't know what it is, but we say some things like, that's bullying. Like, that's harassment. That's racist. That's sexist, what you said. There's no way around it. Like, and we do that. And I don't know what comes out of us and why sometimes the worst version of ourselves behind a screen, but I would just say none of us. Like, that's got to stop. That's mandatory for all of us. None of us should be doing that through a screen. Right? I think it's mandatory that you should not pressure someone to compromise with the power available to you. Again, this is power. This is a resource that you have, this incredible device that you carry with you at all times. You have access to somebody, at 2 a.m. in the morning that you never used to have. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had this. And now you can pressure things. You can suggest some things. You can ask for some things. You can send some things. That you are taking advantage of the power that you have in your hands. And that was never designed for that. And I think we should just all stop and say, I'm not going to pressure somebody to compromise their character or their values through the power available to me on my screen. I think it's mandatory that we have the most important conversations face to face. Ask them out face to face, break up with them face to face, encourage them face to face, have the hard conversations face to face. Because this isn't just for people on the other side of you, this is for you too. I don't want you to remember or not remember those important moments because it was just one of a couple billion texts that you've sent in your life. I want you to remember those moments. I want you to connect and say, there was something ingrained in my mind in that moment because I chose this setting, because I chose the coffee conversation, and not because I chose the quick and easy one. But now I'm different. Now I'm stronger. Now I've grown. Now I'm going to remember that as a result. Last one I would say that's mandatory is I think it's mandatory that we build up and we don't tear down with the technology available to us. We encourage others. We support others. We check in on others. But we don't tear others down through the devices, through the power that is in our hands. I say this as somebody who's trying to figure all this out with you. Like, I've grown up with you guys in all this and the exposure too. Like, I'm trying to figure it out too. But the reason I think some of these are important to talk about is I think we're all like this guy right here. Like, we are all underwater. And because everybody is underwater, we don't know it. I don't know if a fish knows he's underwater or not. I don't know if a fish knows that the United States exists. I don't know if he knows that he can visit Australia. Like, I don't know if he knows the possibilities because we're all underwater. We are all, and I use the word addicted on purpose. We are all, I promise you, addicted to our phones. I don't have time to explain the science behind it. It's dopamine is the chemical. There's a hit every single time you touch your phone. The average American touches their phone 10,000 times a day. It is extraordinary. How is that even possible? But it is. And every single time there's a ding, you have to look. Every single time there's, an alert, you have to look. You know you're addicted if you get anxiety when your battery starts to die. You know that you are addicted if you get anxiety when you don't have service. You know you are addicted if it's the last thing you look at before you go to bed and the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning. You know you're addicted if you can't hang out with your friends or if you can't sit and listen to a message like this without checking. Those are signs of an addict. If that was a bottle of alcohol in your hand and it was a constant sip at all those times, you would be like, whoa, I need to check in on that friend. I'm checking in on you guys. Like, I hope y'all are checking in on me. Like, this is a conversation we need to have together. But I think we're not aware because we're all underwater with it, and I think we have to have this conversation. This isn't just about getting those 34 hours down. You know what's possible with face-to-face? You know what's possible when we get face-to-face right? Things like this happen when we get face-to-face right. I think the reason that we mark those 2 weeks of the year, and if you've never been with us before, this is boot camp and Camp 75. I think there is more face-to-face that happens in these 2 weeks than the other 50 weeks of the year combined. Because there's face-to-face time with our teams, face-to-face with our small groups, face-to-face in these sessions, face-to-face in our cabins. There's face-to-face when we're serving the community and serving kids and serving parents and serving at nonprofits. We're not wondering if we're missing out on anything because we know what's happening is here in this room, and this is the best place in the world to be. And those are the most powerful 2 weeks of the year for us because we connect with one another and we do something significant with our time instead of wasting our time. This is the kind of stuff that doesn't have to be 2 weeks, a year. We could devote ourselves to something so much bigger than that. So my question for you guys is very simple. Where do you need to create a space for face-to-face? Where in your schedule, where physically, who with, do you need to create a space for face-to-face? For me, I've already shared some of the ones that I've done, taking things off my phone, black and white, all these different things. Again, I don't know that maybe that's extreme. For me personally, I was looking at my schedule this week and preparing for this message. I have 11 one-on-one meetings every week, and I don't mean like, oh, try and do that. Part of that's my job and all that kind of stuff. But 5 of those are just friends and family that I meet with on a weekly basis, and I've only been doing this like 6 months or so now. But one of the people that I meet with on a regular basis is Emily, and there are moments. We do this on Monday nights. Half the time we do this in Hop Dottie, so if you come on a Monday afternoon to see us, like kind of emotional at Hop Dottie, just know, leave us alone. But that's what we're doing, is we're having our weekly meeting. And I swear, half the time, one of us gets emotional, and it's like in a good way, because we're having conversations, and we're laughing about things, and we're checking in on how each other are doing in ways that we just don't pretty much all the other time of our life. One of the ones that I've started in the last several months has been a weekly meeting with my dad. And I don't know about you guys and your relationship with your dad, and I know that's different with everybody, but for me, my relationship with my dad has always been fairly superficial. It's always been like, did you see LeBron last night? It's always been like, hey, how was work? How was school? And that's kind of it. And we sit and we watch sports together. And for the first time in my life, I'm sitting down And we're having conversations that I've dreamed of my whole life. Things that just as a son you want to hear from your father. And you want to discover about each other, and you want to learn about each other, and you want to discover why we do the things we do and share stories I've never heard before. It's incredible. Like those 11 hours of my week are easily the best 11 hours of my week every single week. You connect with a couple people like that every week, like maybe it's one, maybe it's two, and you will have a good week. Your joy will be complete in that week. So my question for you is very simple. Where do you need to create a space for face-to-face? I want to create space right now for face-to-face conversations in the context of our small groups and talk about exactly what that would look like. I'm about to pray for us. Before I do, if you are a senior, don't leave the room, okay? Don't leave the room. I need seniors to come closer to the stage after I pray and hang here. We're going to talk about 12, our senior weekend coming up for a minute. The normal small group that meets in here, y'all are going to hang in starting point today, okay? Let me pray for us real quick, and then we'll head to those groups. Heavenly Father, thank you that you designed face-to-face conversation. You know the potential of it. You know the beauty of it. And God, this is so hard to see in the mirror, to monitor ourselves and check ourselves and see what is healthy with this. But God, I just ask that you speak to us in groups today, that we have powerful face-to-face conversations with one another where we can be real and honest with one another, and we can check how it is that our joy can be complete, that we can connect with you in a different way, and we can connect with the people in our groups in a different way than we ever have before, and realize the potential and the beauty in that you have for us. God, we're so excited to see what you're going to do. We love you and need you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.